All right. So we do have a little bit of basketball, then we've got baseball. Do you wanna do the basketball first, and then we'll do baseball?
Yeah, we can go ahead and do a little bit of basketball. There's a reason I'm wearing my Mavericks jersey right now, and so I'll go ahead and get this one out of the way. I'm excited. I know that people are skeptical, which I'm not going to say I'm not, but the Mavericks agree to a sign and trade to get Clay Thompson, and I think that's a pretty good fit, going along with their other free agency acquisitions so far. I'm excited about it. People were skeptical about Kyrie coming in. It ended up going pretty well. I'm pretty excited about Clay coming here and getting a fresh start. He doesn't have to be your number two. He can be your number three and just be hitting open threes, which we've proven Kyrie and Luca can get you open threes. It's just a matter of can you knock them down. And if I had to put money on Clay versus the other guys we were relying on to knock them down, I would probably put my money on Clay.
Absolutely. I mean, he'll be another year away from the Achilles. It always takes a couple of years with the Achilles before a guy's like fully back. Now, I'm not saying he's
Mm-hmm.
going to be, good Golden State Clay again. I don't know if that guy still exists, but you don't need that really. You just need a guy that can play a little bit of defense, like just stay in front of a man and then hit wide open threes because the Mavs, they get you wide open threes, and they didn't have the guys to hit them for four straight rounds last year.
Right.
As that as the as we talked about at the time, you get further and further and further into the NBA playoffs, the role players tend to get a little bit worse every step of the way. And the Mavs definitely saw that. That by the time they got to the finals, like they just were not going to hit shots.
Right. And even
You don't have to worry
though,
about that with Clay.
yeah, because even though he will technically, in a way, be a role player for us, you can't consider Clay Thompson necessarily a role player. He's a piece.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for that one. I think Nico Harrison has been doing some really good stuff for the Mavericks, and so I'm stoked for that. We do have a lot of other, not a lot, but a few other big names making some changes. The first one, obviously, Paul George going to the 76ers is pretty damn big.
Yeah, it could be huge if Joel Embiid stays healthy. I mean, we've been saying that. It's funny that he leaves the if Kawhi stays healthy to join the if Embiid stays healthy team.
True.
Uh, and then Harden's basically taken his place in LA, and then he goes and takes Harden's place in Philly, but they weren't traded for each other. It's a weird situation. Um,
Yeah.
they also lost a lot of their depth in order to do this. So that's going to be tough. We'll see what they do with the rest of their roster. But I think overall, it's a good thing. I think Paul George fits the Sixers pretty well
I think so
because
too.
Maxi can still continue to be the main ball handler. Paul George doesn't get in Joel Embiid's way, and Embiid doesn't get in Paul George's way, and Paul George doesn't really get in the way of Maxi, and Maxi doesn't really get in the way of Paul George. Like the three of them, stylistically, the three of them fit really, really well together. About as good as you can have three star players fit together. Those guys fit really well,
I agree.
stylist.
I
Like the type of players that they are, they fit really well.
I think so too. I think that bodes well for them in the East, and I think that they will be a contender. And one of the, I mean, obviously the NBA free agency is a lot of fun. It's one of our favorite times of the year as far as the NBA goes. But one of the things that isn't as exciting is re-signing. But the Sixers also are able to re-sign and extend with a max extension to Maxi.
Tyrese Maxey.
Yeah, the max.
Maxey got the max.
Yeah, that's what messed me up there. But yeah, so I really think that that's a good move for them. I still think Paul George is pretty good. He proved it with the Clippers, like you said. They weren't fully healthy the whole time, even that whole series against the Mavericks. But one of the bright spots was Paul George. So I think that's a pretty big one. So we'll see what Philly's able to do with that.
Yeah, and speaking of re-signing, Jason Tatum signed the largest NBA contract in NBA history.
Mm-hmm.
He'll hold that distinction for a year, and then somebody else will sign that an even bigger one, and then the year after that, somebody else will sign a bigger one. It's kind of a non-story of like, oh, biggest contract ever. Well, it's the biggest contract for now.
Yeah, because
They're gonna
Luca's going to
they're
be
just gonna
up.
get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Uh, Harden stays with the Clippers. That was kind of expected.
Right. Quite
And
a bit of
then
money, though.
one that I didn't expect and I'm kind of excited for is Chris Paul signing with the Spurs.
Yeah, I think that's pretty exciting. They needed a veteran to come down there. They're going to have some youth.
Specifically a veteran point guard.
Exactly. So I think that's a really good fit. I was surprised that I guess not really with the way the Warriors are kind of going. It seems like that dynasty is kind of not necessarily crumbling, but kind of basically on the way out. And for them to, I was a little surprised to see them waive Chris Paul. However, San Antonio picking him up is pretty damn big, and not Chris Paul himself, obviously, but, but
Right.
him being with Wimby, I think that's a really good matchup, and I feel like that's what they needed.
Like I think he's perfect. He's exactly what they need. And I didn't pay any, not even a second's attention to the draft, so I don't know if they drafted a point guard or what, but anybody that they bring in as like a young point guard, being able to learn from Chris Paul and having Wimby be able to be there and kind of learn from Chris Paul. Say what you will about Chris Paul, like every time, aside from the Warriors, which was kind of a disaster from beginning to end, every team that he has joined has gotten better for his presence
Yeah,
every single time. I know he doesn't have a title, and I know a lot of people are going to hold that against him. There was a couple of different times he probably would get a title, but he got hurt at the wrong time. He
right.
doesn't have to worry about that here. He just needs to be the leader, the veteran guy. He needs to show him the ropes, and Wimpy being able to play with an actual point guard, somebody that can pass the ball successfully to him when he gets into these situations, it's going to be so huge. So huge.
Agreed.
It would not shock me. It would not shock me if the Spurs were a bubble team or uh, a, a play-in team next year. It wouldn't shock me.
No, I'm right there with you. I really like Wimby. He showed that he is, um, if not the real deal, real close to being the real deal. And I think that the Spurs are going to be pretty good. They're going to be fun to watch, and they're going to give some good teams a tough game. It's not going to be easy to beat the Spurs next year.
Yeah, I mean, if you watch the Spurs in the first month of the season last year and you watched them at the end of the season, totally different team.
Hmm.
Now, they still weren't a good team yet, but they were hanging in games with really good teams.
Yep, agreed.
Like there was definite progression, not just from Wimby, but as a unit. And when they inserted Kai Jones, I think it was at point guard when they actually started playing, because they basically didn't have a point guard for the first part of the season, Jones was coming off the bench, or was it Trey Jones? I think it's Trey Jones was coming off the bench and wasn't really playing a ton with Wemby. And then at the end of the season, he was playing a lot more with Wemby, and he's like an actual, person that can pass the ball, because they were kind of going just point guardless for most of the game. And that really, you don't want to do that whenever you have, like, if your best player is a big man, you need a point guard.
Right.
You just do.
Yep. Yeah, because obviously you don't want big man bring the ball up court.
Not every time.
No.
You can sometimes, but not every time. You need somebody else that can take. I mean, even if your best player is a guard, you still need a second guard that can take some pressure off of them as far as running the offense goes. So, I think that's a huge. I think big picture wise, like talking next 10 years of the NBA, I think the Chris Paul move might be the most impactful overall, because of what it means for Wemby and the Spurs going forward, even post Chris Paul.
Bold, but I can't disagree with that.
It's possible. I'm not saying this is going to happen, but it's possible that 5 years from now, Wemby and the Spurs are winning a title, and you can draw a through line to them signing Chris Paul as the thing that put them in a position to where they could eventually win a title.
Okay.
And if that happens and it's pretty clear that it was a big part of that, Chris Paul signing for, the last 2 years of his career or whatever was a big part of leading that direction, that's more of an impact than Klay to the Mavs, unless the Mavs win a title this year or next year, or George to the 76ers, unless the 76ers win a title with George, Maxey, and Embiid.
I just feel like you're definitely not wrong. I'm not going to argue with that at all. There's definitely a chance, because it's not easy to just, we got this guy, now we're going to go win an NBA title. I mean, even when you look back to the decision with LeBron going down to South Beach, it wasn't just a for sure thing. They just went and won a title. Now they did end up getting two, but agreed. But I do think that there's a better chance that either the Mavericks or the Sixers, based on the moves that they just made, that they do end up getting a title within the next year or two. And that would maybe make that a little bit further down. But I do think it's huge. I do think that bodes well for San Antonio. And it's funny, when we talked about if we wanted to mention any kind of NBA free agency yet, you were like, yeah, there's about three big ones I wanted to talk about. And I was hoping you meant the Chris Paul one, because I kind of felt the same way.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I saw that and I texted Aurora. I was like, that's huge.
Yeah.
Like, I am so glad that they signed Chris Paul, because it's just going to be so impactful. Like, I was so scared, and I'm not even a Spurs fan. I'm kind of a closet Spurs fan, I guess, but
a little bit.
I was so scared that the reports of, the Spurs are going to trade for Trae Young. Like, I was so scared for Wemby that they were going to trade for Trae Young, because that would have been the worst case scenario, in my opinion. Because I don't think that Trae Young is a good teammate. I don't think that he's good for winning basketball. I know they made a run to the conference finals. I would not want Trae Young to be on my team at all, but I definitely wouldn't want to build a team around Trae Young. Trae Young's one of the few guys that would go to San Antonio, look at the guys around and be like, oh yeah, this is my team. This is my team.
Right. Wemby, I could see that.
Wemby, you go stand over there. I'm going to dribble the ball a million times. I'm going to pass it to you when I'm ready, when I'm good and ready to pass it to you. It's like, that's not what they need. They need a guy that knows that it's Wemby's team.
Yeah, I'm not going to talk too much shit about Trae Young, because I do think he's a good basketball player. But you're right. He definitely has a different vision than Chris Paul, for sure.
He's a very talented basketball player that I would not want anything to do with on my team. That's just where I'm at.
That's fair enough. Well, I'm excited to see what else happens with NBA free agency. It's definitely, I feel like it doesn't have as many fireworks as it has before, but there's definitely plenty of time for that to happen.